Welcome everyone to our channel on the brain. Today's video we will discuss the importance of sleep for the consolidation of memory and souvenirs. So for those of you who might be interested in the subject in a deeper fashion, and those of you who read French, this is addressed in my book Allumé, chapter 8, in a detailed fashion. So let's start by stating that memory is a very complex mechanism. Had I known what I know now, when I was a medical student, I would have done things differently. Now, to the students listening, maybe are you, as I were, studying and preparing for your exam during the night just prior to the exam. So you're sacrificing sleep to study. Well, that is the worst thing you can do. It's the worst strategy. And today's video will tell you why. So let's first talk about sleep. What is sleep? Well, we might consider sleep as a passive mechanism of the brain, as though the brain is going to sleep. But that's not what sleep is. Sleep is actually an active phenomenon triggered by specific neurons in the brainstem, in an area of the brainstem called the pons. So right here in the middle of your brain, there are neurons that will trigger the initiation of sleep. So what is sleep? Sleep is actually, and we're going to do this in a very summarized fashion. Like I said, if you are interested in a more detailed description, if you read French, of course. So sleep is a succession of 4 to 6 cycles of deep sleep and what we call REM sleep. So deep sleep here lasts about an hour and is quickly followed by what we call REM sleep, which lasts for about 15 minutes. So this is one cycle, and this is repeated, like we said, 4 to 6 times during a night. Now, these two components of speech are entirely different. In deep sleep, you know that we can measure the electrical activity at the surface of the brain using EEG, or an electroencephalograms. So we measure the activity in the cortex, and what we see in deep sleep is an electrical activity with very high amplitude and a slow frequency, which is quite different from the activity in the awake state. Whereas during REM sleep, REM means rapid eye movement. So in REM sleep, you are paralyzed, but for the eye movements, which are quite active. And the electrical activity in your brain wakes up. It's as though your brain is awake. So this is what looks the electrical activity in your cortex during REM sleep, and this is what it looks when you are fully awake but with your eyes closed. So you see that these two guys are fairly similar, whereas deep sleeps looks more like this. So you understand electrically that these two things are entirely different. They are different mechanisms. So what's really going on in your head? Well, there is one thing which we call the hippocampal cortical dialogue. And it's basically an exchange of information between two structures: the cortex of your brain, which is at the surface of your brain, and a nucleus called the hippocampus, which is this blue nucleus here. So what happens during the night? Let's say you have gathered information during your day, you have studied hard, you go to sleep. During your deep sleep, your hippocampus, which has stored this information, will push it to the brain, to the cortex. And when you switch to the rapid eye movement sleep, the REM sleep, a process in your brain called neuroplasticity will get activated. Now, during neuroplasticity, what happens is that your neurons are actively moving, changing, remaking connections, and incorporating all this new information within your cortex. It's as though the hippocampus, as initially during the deep sleep, pushed the data toward the cortex, And when you pass in REM sleep, the data is incorporated within the cortex. It's writing your hippocampus, which is the temporary memory, is writing on your hard disk this data in the brain. But there is a big difference between an actual computer, as term of a metaphor, and the brain. Because in a computer, when you write data on a hard disk, the data is written sequentially and in a similar way, whereas that's not the way the brain works. Now, the hippocampus will write only the essential data in your cortex. And when you wake up the morning after that good night of sleep and you try to recollect some data, your hippocampus will actually extract the data from your cortex, but will also build around it, in that it will have written only the essential data, and everything else will be reconstructed in a vague fashion. Let's take an example. Just remember the last historical site you visited. Now you're going to have a vivid memory of the site, of the architectural site, of the probably the weather that day. But the thing that you won't have memorized in a detailed fashion was the people around you, the surrounding tourists. And that is nonetheless reconstructed by your hippocampus, but in a vague fashion. So it's as though the hippocampus is directing a movie, and it's only remembering the main actors, whereas all the other actors, the secondary actors, are reconstructed by the hippocampus. And this can lead to some error, to some mistakes. That's why the memory is not such a reliable process. And our memory, our recollection, our souvenirs can incorporate some mistakes by doing so. Those mistakes are actually the making of the hippocampus once it reconstructs the scene. But now you get a better sense of why the sleep is a major part of the memorization process. It requires neuroplasticity, which is mainly activated during the REM sleep. And for that, well, you need to sleep. So thank you again for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that video, and see you next time. So that was it for this week. Thanks for listening to us. We have a lot of pleasure producing these videos on the brain, on neurosciences. It's a topic that we do like. We do enjoy the topic. And the goal is really to simplify matters for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed that. You know that it also serves a good purpose, in that we are linked to a foundation called COEUR en Tête, which actually support my lab. So my lab does research on brain tumors. We're looking for new treatment strategies. So everything that will be considered a profit on this channel will be sent to the laboratory. So if you like what we do, if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like the channel, to like the videos, to subscribe, and to click the bell so that you get notifications whenever we get a new video out. Please leave comments as well as questions. If you guys have specific questions on the brain, on neurosciences, and we would be more than happy to respond, to address some of the questions you guys have on the brain. So thanks again for listening. Notice as well that there is a link directly to my internet site that will promote any media activities as well as release of new books. So thanks again for being there.